Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov Chess Channel, and welcome to another great tournament that started recently. Welcome to the Computer Bullet Chess Championship in 2022. So this is now an amazing tournament. The tempo is 2+1, so the engines have 2 minutes on the clock plus a 1 second increment per move. And of course, we will cover also in the future the super final in the TCEC competition that we have started recently. But I wanted to show really this beautiful game from the Computer Bullet Chess Championship between Stockfish against another top engine, Seer. It is, I think, again, the sharpest of Stockfish that we can see, because here the Seer engine had to play the Sicilian, and there are so many things that can happen in some Sicilians, and especially when it comes to tactics. There are so many great ways how to go into tactical battles, and of course you know that Stockfish loves tactical battles. Whenever the game becomes wilder and wilder, then of course Stockfish finds really beautiful attacking elements. So let's check out now this beautiful sharp game here played by the Stockfish engine. So here e4 was played, we have c5, the Sicilian, knight to f3, and here e6 was played, the so-called French Sicilian. After move d4, c takes d4, knight to d4, and here a6. We have now the so-called Khan variation of the Sicilian, which is in my opinion one of the good Sicilians that you can play, still with ideas to play b5. You still have a flexibility here to play the move d5. You can also play the move d6, having maybe the chevening structure and similar stuff. So really flexible way to go into the game. So here Stockfish will play the move c4, which is now the so-called Marozzi bind, which is in my opinion really good move here, because first of all you're blocking out the b5 move. You're not allowing this move because you have a beautiful control of the square, and you also are blocking out the d5 breakthrough idea here by black. The bad part about this move, there is always a good part and also a bad part about every move, I think. After move c4 you are blocking out a little bit too much your light square bishop, so even if the bishop gets here in d3, it is simply blocked out by its own pawn structure. That's, I think, something that bothers white a little bit in the continuation of the game. But still, the good control of these two pawns, I think, has is of course good size, because here I think white is controlling now the center of the board. So we have here knight to f6, of course knight to c3, protecting the e4 pawn, and now queen to c7. We have now a3 with the preparation to play b4, and then maybe in some occasions even c5 if it's possible. So here we have knight to c6, and here bishop to e3, and now a very important line that I think you face many times here from white's perspective, knight to e5, attacking now the c4 weakness. And here Stockfish plays bishop to e2, which is really the best way, because here black can actually not take. If black takes here then the pawn on c4, then basically it's game over for black. This is really beautiful and dirty trap that you can face many times in these types of structures. So here after move knight to c4, bishop to c4, and here after queen to c4, we're playing now rook to c1, and the queen is basically trapped. You don't have good squares for the queen wherever you escape. Even if you try, I don't know, queen to c7, then we have this one, knight to b5, and if the queen moves, you will lose the battle here around the square c7. So you get the fork and will simply take out the rook. You don't want to lose, of course. You could maybe try some ideas like this, but maybe to grab one piece, but still with knight to b5, you didn't improve your pawn structure at all. You didn't improve your position at all. So as I said, although you gained two pieces, you gained the rook and the minor piece for the queen, but it's not enough compensation for the lost queen. So you can maybe try here knight to e4 instead of moving the queen, but again we just simply take, and you maybe have a compensation of 2 pawns for the lost piece, but again it's simply not enough here for black. Black is losing the game for sure. So that's why you have to be careful here from black's perspective. You cannot take out this poison pawn sort of on c4. So here knight to g6 was played by Seer. We have kingside castling, bishop to e7, now of course f4, because whenever you feel that you could maybe expand here on the king side, you should do it, because these two knights of course are controlling something. They're controlling some important squares in the center of the board, but they can be actually also an object of our attack here from white's perspective. So you see the knights are always there, and we can always play something like f5, e5, so we can always push away this knight and get extra time, extra tempi, and also expand on the king side. So that's why, okay, you have played your knight on a good square on g6, where it's of course a good defensive place in front of the king, and it controls, as I said, the center of the board. But now the knight on g6 will become actually the main strategical problem here for black. So here after move f4 we have d6 by Seer. We have a rook to c1 with ideas maybe even to if the position allows it, maybe even to play some wild sacrifices like knight to d5, c takes d5, again sort of liberating the c file and attacking the queen. So far it's not possible, but if this knight would be maybe here on c6, maybe then this idea knight to d5, c takes d5 could work, because then we could have some beautiful tactical shots. So as I said, sometimes these ideas are possible, you should always consider them, but in this position it's not possible. Okay, here after move rook to c1, we have kingside castling, we have now b4. Look how Stockfish expands on both sides, because that's how black played now the game. Black allowed this scenario. Now from this point on, I would not love to play now anymore this game from black's perspective, because I think white gained simply too much space here in the continuation of the game. So after b4, rook to e8, we have king to h1, bishop to f8, and now g4. Even this is a possibility. Look at this, 5 pawns are already on the 5th rank, and as I said, now g5, f5 are beautiful opportunities here for white in order to create further madness on the king side. So here we have h6, we have g5 anyway, so Stockfish is not losing any time here, is attacking the position immediately. H takes g5, f takes g5, the knight has to move, and now comes, I think, the stunner of the game, which is now a very important move. If white doesn't play this move, I think the attack could really splash, because you could maybe try many ideas. You could try here maybe some ideas of a4, then even b5, but here Stockfish plays a beautiful move h4, and it seems so that this could be risky, because you're giving up a pawn that is sort of in front of your king. It is at least some kind of a protective piece, because we have to really say it, the king on h1 is a little bit naked here. So if the center explodes, for instance, if something gets cleared here in the center of the board, and if black manages to somehow include the bishop into the game in a good way, then this could be a lost game for white, because then the king would be really in danger. But now with the move h4, Stockfish is saying, I'm going to attack you faster than you're going to attack my king on h1. So that's why this move h4 is so important. If you play any passive moves, of course, probably white is still slightly better, but as I said, the attack would splash, I think, a little bit. The attack would be not so dangerous. So that's why, in my opinion, this was the most important move of the whole game, this move h4, because this wasn't played in the game, but I wanted to show you what would happen if you take out the pawn. This would be really a dirty attack now by white, because after king knight to h4, we have rook to f2. We're trying to get the rook into the game here on the h file. Now of course you have to retreat with the knight, and now with queen to f1, you could maybe try to include new defenders into the game. But now with queen to h3, look at this, bishop to e7 has to be played, because you have to create now an escape route for your king. You have to escape with your king here to e7, maybe even to d7. Now in the continuation after rook to h2, you have to protect yourself, because let's see the worst move that you can play, then you get even checkmated. So you see queen to h7, a king to f8, queen to h8, and now after knight to h8, we have rook to h8. It would be a beautiful checkmate. So that's why you have to create here, as I said, an escape route for the king. So that's why after move rook to h2, you would be forced to play something like bishop to d8, but now rook to f1. Look at this rook gets also into the game, and now the fun really starts, because even if you try to escape, you get this one, knight to f5 is controlling really some beautiful squares. And there is now a tactical problem here around the square g7, because the queen could come here on h7, and then you could deliver checkmate. The problem is now, for instance, even if you take, then we have this one, knight to d5, and finally you see the pawn gets deflected from the d5 square, and we're controlling now the escape route for black. We're not allowing black's king to come here on e7. You have to, for instance, move the queen, and then you get the same tactical shot, you get the same queen sacrifices. Now we have reached the same checkmate pattern, with the only difference that, of course, the knight is controlling here the e7. In the previous position, the bishop was there on e7 and didn't allow here black king to escape. So as I said, similar tactical shot, but with the beauty that we have now really this monstrous knight in the center of the board. So this would be one of the continuations. Of course, black doesn't have to play the game like this, but okay, I wanted to show you how wild it could actually become if you take out this poison pawn on h4. So that's why after h4, in my opinion, as I said, this was the most important move that you have to find in the continuation of the game in order to have really beautiful attack. So here after move h4, we have knight to e5 by Seer, we have h5, so you see Stockfish is letting the pawns rolling. Stockfish is creating green, and also madness on the king side. We have b6 and now g6, trying to of course create further weaknesses in black's position. We have bishop to b7 and now queen to e1 with the same idea to get the queen on g3, maybe to h4. We just want to push the pawn on h6 here and just explode, let the position explode, let of course create some open files on the g file, on the h file, and then black's king could be really endangered. So we have here f5, a desperate try here by Seer just to stop somehow the progress, because Stockfish gets out of the potential range of the bishop. We have said in the beginning of the video that this could be one of the tactical problems for white if this bishop gets into the game. Now in the continuation we have f takes e4, but it's not a problem now to lose this pawn. It doesn't matter because now the bishop is blocked out by its own pawn, and now it's not such a good bishop anymore. The bishop on e3 is very important. It's not allowing here maybe some e3 ideas. Then the bishop could again be activated here on this long diagonal. So as I said, this is not working. Stockfish continues simply the pressure with move queen to h4 and is trying now this idea to play h6. Well, so we have bishop to e7 and now queen to h3, attacking the e6 weakness. We have knight to f8, protecting the position at least for a while, and now comes again a new stunner in Stockfish position. This was probably the second most important move in the continuation of the game. We have now a beautiful tactical shot, rook to f7. And what to do if you don't react, if you play something like queen to d8 in order to get out of this tactical mess on the 7th rank, because there was of course some threats here on the 7th rank. If the queen stays here, then the bishop cannot move to f6 because you would of course lose the queen on c7. If the queen moves now to d8, then you still proceed with this idea, h6, and the problem is now even if you take here knight to g6 or even knight from f to g6, whatever you do, you will lose the battle here with rook to g7. So that was the most important tactical shot. Now we can play something like knight to e6, queen to e6, so again the game is simply lost here for black. So this is something that cannot be defended anymore, so that's why you have to be careful. After move rook to f7 that Stockfish played here, the other engine Seer simply took the rook, knight takes f7. After e takes f7, we have king to f7, and now again important attacking move h6. We have bishop to f6. If you try g takes h6, then of course this rook will come into the game, and that's exactly what we wanted to get here in the attack. We wanted to create an open g file, we want to create an open f file. Now it's much easier to attack the naked king here on f7. You could maybe try to escape, but now with knight to e6 again the game is simply lost. So many ideas are working here. Everything is, I think, a little simply lost here for black. So after move h6, here in the continuation we have bishop to f6. So this other engine Seer includes at least a new defender into the position. We have here h7. Now you see the problem is the potential promotion, and here Seer has to give up this knight for a pawn. After queen to h7 we have this idea, rook to h8, but now a beautiful way to escape from this tactic. Queen to h5, bishop to h5 allows now the queen to get here on g6. Really wild stuff here by the Stockfish engine. Now of course there is a threat to play queen to f7, so that's why rook takes h5, and now after queen to h5 we have now a new position in which Stockfish is up a whole piece, which is now completely winning here for white. So really beautiful tactical sequence by Stockfish. Of course the game was prolonged for a little bit, because here queen to d7, we have rook to f1, we have rook to f8, and now after queen to g4 Stockfish continues here the pressure around the square e6. This is now, I think, a clear target for white. So we have d5, we have knight to e2, we have bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, and now after rook to f1, king to f1, I think the simplification is working here for white. White doesn't have to complicate things so much anymore, because white is simply up a piece. We have king to e8, we have king to e1, we have d takes c4, and now bishop to b6. Look at this. This is a weak pawn, this is a weak pawn, this pawn on c4 is weak, this is a weak pawn, this is also a weak pawn. So many pawn islands that of course can be attacked by white's pieces. So the game is over here for black. So queen to e7, bishop to d4, d6, bishop e3, bishop to e3, queen to f6, and now queen to c4. Everything is lost here. Queen to a1 and you check. We have just a couple perpetuals here, queen to d4, and now after knight to d4 it's game over. So of course the bishop to d5 was played, but now the king is marching. We have g5. Stockfish didn't even take here, just continue to play actively with the pieces. Play simply knight to b3. We have bishop to d4. We have knight to c5. We have now this idea, knight takes e6 with the discovered check, and also of course this pawn could be taken, so it's game over. So here I want to stop because the game was prolonged for another 15 moves. That's not the point of this game. I think we have witnessed really beautiful attack here by the Stockfish engine. Let's go back to the critical moment where Stockfish sacrificed here the rook with rook to f7. This was really stunning tactic. After knight to f7, g takes f7. Let's include now every piece into the game. Now with h6 we have seen this was the idea to create this passer on the h file. If you take, we have seen also that there were some really wild tactics that are possible. So really beautiful attack by the Stockfish engine in bullet time format, which is really incredible. Stockfish played an outstanding attacking game. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas in the Sicilian. If you want to see also some other competitions that are played now, you can check out my coverage of the TCEC season 22. We have covered also the beautiful finals between Stockfish and the Dragon engine. And if you want to see maybe some other games played by humans, which are of course also very attractive to watch, you can also check out my best chess games of all time series with some beautiful games played by Garry Kasparov, Mikhail Tal, Magnus Carlsen, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.